Our next session for today is with Mr. S.Venkatesh and Preetshika Anil. S. Venkatesh is a best-selling author, speaker, business leader, and investor. His thriller, Kalkoot, The Lost Himalayan Secret, is an Amazon #1 bestseller and has received acclaim and been featured in the Times of India, the New Indian Express, the Hindu, and the Statesman, among other publications. His next book, Agniban, Guardians of the Fire Chamber, will be published soon. Mr. Venkatesh started his career in the equity markets as a private investor and has been a director on the boards of many companies. He has helped businesses thrive and grow and is a regular speaker for corporate and literary forums where he draws on his diverse experience as a mindfulness practitioner and business leader to motivate individuals and organizations to embark on a journey of self-discovery and transformation. In conversation with him today, we have Ms. Preetshika Anil, who is a writer, editor, and former journalist. She has been associated with news, features, and business desks in India and the UK for over 16 years. She is the author of Essentials on for Business, a best-selling adaptation which was selected as part of the CEO's Bookshelf series. She has edited many best-selling books for various Indian and international publishers. She was the editor for a features magazine in the UK and has also edited the newsletter for CMCA, an NGO that she volunteers for. We have them here today to talk about boardrooms, creativity, and thrillers. Please welcome them on stage.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody.
So we have Venkatesh here, who's the author of Kalkoot. And Kalkoot is a best-selling historical fiction novel. And it is already on its third print run already. So congratulations.
Thank you, Preetshika. Thank you.
So your background is in corporate life. So you've worked with banks and other financial institutions, right? Let's talk a little about how you started from there and moved on to become an author.
Sure. So, yeah, as you mentioned, I started my career in the corporate world. My first job was with Credit Suisse, interestingly in the stock markets. So I used to be an equity analyst, which is I used to give recommendations, buy and sell recommendations on companies. I moved on to JP Morgan, where I was heading the equity research team. I think one thing which has been with me for a long time, right from my school days, was that I like to write and I like to read as well. And somewhere there was this feeling that when I grew up, I'd want to write a book. But what happens is that in the middle of corporate life, we get busy and somewhere those dreams sort of remain dreams, but you don't end up acting on them. So throughout my corporate days, I would end up traveling and then, you'd get inspiration to write. So you'd write a page or two and then it would just get sort of, shelved away. Finally, I got a chance actually to act on this inspiration because I was traveling a lot on business. So I spent a lot of time on flights and, that's when you get to silence those, external noises and focus on what you want to do. And that's where a lot of this book got written. So a lot of the book actually got written on flights. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to finish this manuscript?
Well, it actually took quite long, about 3-4 years. And the reason is the first 2 years, I wasn't focused on writing it. So, you're back from work one day and you just want to unwind and you spend half an hour writing. Then 2 weeks, nothing happens. After 2 weeks, once again, you get the inspiration and you write. Then you're traveling after 2 weeks and again you end up writing. So it was sort of fits and starts. Last 2 years is when I was focused on actually writing the book.
So what changed that? Why did you suddenly get more focused?
I think at some point we all have dreams and many of them are creative aspirations. And at some point you get the feeling that, oh my God, if I don't actually do it, it's just going to remain a dream. I think that pressure or whatever, that sort of internal compass somewhere guided me towards taking it more seriously. I think, as I said, because I had a lot of time on flight, so initially you just, read books or you, watch a show or something. But somewhere you decide that, all this is boring and let's then get down to doing something more interesting. Yeah.
So what made you choose this genre, a historical thriller?
So I've loved reading thrillers for a very long time now. I think thrillers bring together a lot of emotions, right? So there's suspense, there's anxiety, there's intrigue, there's mystery. And actually there are so many things around us which lend themselves to writing a thriller. But historical specifically, because I think we are at a time in India where a lot of us want to understand our roots better. That's also why Amish's Shiva trilogy has been popular. There are other books as well. There is Vineet Bajpayee's Harappa series. There are Ashwin Sanghi's books. And I think a lot of us want to reinterpret our heritage, understand our past better. And somewhere that lends itself to historical thrillers. So I think that's also why Dan Brown's books are popular around the world. So that's why history. And I think thrillers feel a lot better when there's a ring of truth around them. What if I was to tell you that in the building next door, 100 years ago, somebody who was escaping from the British decided to hide a treasure? It would just make it that much more interesting versus a synthesized story, right? So that's why I think historical thrillers excited me as a genre.
That's a good tip, and somebody is thinking of a book on those lines already. I can see the wheels churning there.
Of course, the treasure here actually can be made from the stock exchanges itself by investing wisely, but anyway.
So I had the pleasure of proofreading Amish's Shiva trilogy.
Yes, yes.
And a lot of that is based on mythology. So in this genre that you are dabbling in, mythology, history, there's a fine line. So how much to the truth are you sticking to when you are working on your book?
So as somebody, I don't remember who, I read somebody's statement that somebody else's mythology is somebody else's history. So the line is thin. The way I see it is that, at least in the context of writing fiction, so mythology has a lot of imagery. And we are lucky as a country to have a lot of very powerful imagery in our literature. I don't know if any of you, so my book's name is Kalkut. I don't know if any of you know what Kalkut means. So Kalkut is the name of this primordial poison which was unearthed when the Devas and Asuras, churned the ocean. And this is a poison that could destroy the whole universe. Now that's a very powerful image. Just as something like, say, Pralay is also a very powerful image. It's not just a storm or a cyclone. It's something, a deluge so great that it can destroy the whole universe. So there's a lot of powerful imagery in mythology. So the way I see it is mythology is about symbolism, it's about imagery, and it's also about inspiration. History can be more or can be the same. History also is something we look to understand ourselves better. I think it's important to not distort facts in any way, but where a fiction writer, I think, has his sort of leeway is that you can make sure that the facts are not distorted, but after that you can use your imagination to weave a story. And stories are much more popular because if you want to understand history, either you can read a dry academic textbook, but stories have always been a much more vibrant medium in societies to communicate knowledge and heritage. Yeah.
Certainly, it would reach a much, much wider audience, for sure. So obviously, to write a book of this kind, you would have had to do a ton of research. And not just on history, but also your settings and your characters. So how did you go about doing that?
So research, there are 3-4 ways. One is obviously reading a fair bit. And we are lucky now that there are sites where you can get a lot of academic papers on various things. So my book actually brings together not just history, but also science. So I ended up reading a lot of papers because there is a weapon of mass destruction, which we are talking about in the book. The more I read, the more I realized that things are actually quite scary. These weapons actually exist. And for some reason, they have not been used. So there's a lot of academic literature available. I also spoke to some researchers. So they were friends of mine, relatives who were, in various universities doing research. So I spoke to them as well. And my favorite mode of doing research is to travel, right? Travel is just so inspiring, right? Most of the ideas for this book came when I was traveling. So a significant part of the book is based in the Himalayas. Correct. And every time I go to the Himalayas, you can't help feeling inspired. And so one of the places, which is towards the end of the book, I won't reveal the name of the place. It's actually such a remote place that when I'd gone there last November, I was the only person in the hotel. There was nobody else.
Wow.
But it's just so fascinating. That place is covered in snow and just so beautiful. It was the perfect setting for some part of the book. So travel is very inspiring. As part of corporate life, I got to travel a fair bit. And, for instance, there was this time when I went to do, just a site visit to check whether a particular company which ran roads, which toll roads, is suitable as an investment. And I chanced upon this 3,500-year-old Indus Valley ruin in a place called Lothal. You might have read about Lothal in your history books, right? And it's just, there was literally one caretaker taking care of a museum. That's it. And you go there, and this is the oldest, one of the oldest ports in the world. And you can still see the remains of that port. So it's just amazing, right? You're here doing a site visit, you're calculating investments and rate of return and all that, and you chance upon this place which must have been vibrant 3,500 years ago. So those sorts of experiences have inspired me, and so that's also research in a way. You travel, you understand places, you understand people. Yeah.
So as an author, when you are interacting with people, are you filing away little tidbits, quirks of character?
Honestly, not consciously. Not consciously. I actually feel, in a way, it undermines the interaction if you're using the person just as a tool for your book. I feel somewhere it undermines the quality of that interaction. So it doesn't happen consciously, but when you try to frame characters, automatically amalgamations of various people you've come across seem to sort of come together, to form a character. So like Damini's character, right? So there is this character in my book who is a female secret agent. And, maybe 30 years ago, it might have been more difficult to write such a character, but now it came so much naturally because you see women, doing so well in sports, in, various fields. And a woman secret agent seemed like a very natural thing. I'm actually surprised not too many people write about women secret. Of course, now James Bond is going to be a woman, so yeah. But yeah, so characters just form themselves once you assimilate experiences, but not consciously. In fact, the more you keep your conscious mind out of your creative pursuits, the better it is. So there are days when I decide I've got to write, and I sit down, and no idea suggests itself to me. On the other hand, yesterday I was busy with some work till pretty much 11 o'clock, and I had not done any writing, and I decided, okay, just 10 minutes, let me write. And a whole load of ideas came to me, which hadn't come to me the last 1 month. So, yeah.
So when you are writing, is it a conscious choice that I must put away, say, 10 minutes or half an hour or an hour? Because a lot of people have stories inside us. You have a story, I have a story. We want to all put it down on paper and hopefully find a publisher, and are lucky enough to find one. But the whole process is a bit of a mystery.
Yeah.
I know some things would work for some people and some not for others, but how do you approach it?
So, when you talk of any pursuit that is creative, one big thing one needs to understand is you have to let go of control. One of the reasons why I think a lot of sportsmen end up being a little superstitious, they do a few specific things before they go on the field, they'll, wear a certain armband or whatever, is because it's so unpredictable. When you're, stepping on that pitch, will you make a century or will you be out for a duck? Nobody really knows, right? It's the same with all sorts of creativity. So the question then is, how do you harness creativity? So one thing I found very useful is just set aside some time every day. Not just for writing, it's any creative pursuit you want. If you're a poet, if you want to learn music, whatever it may be, do it half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever you can do, but do it every day. Some days I would sit for that 1 hour or 2 hours and stare at a blank screen. What you don't realize is your unconscious mind is still processing. If you don't set aside that 1 hour, it's almost like the universe tells you, you've not done your work, so I'm not going to give you the inspiration. Right. So inspiration comes to those who have been disciplined. So maybe the 5th day of staring at a blank screen, you will get that inspiration. The big mistake I made initially, and I think this is the mistake a lot of us who want to pursue creative dreams make, is I used to wait for the inspiration to actually write. Don't wait for the inspiration. Just do your dues, do your bit, and the inspiration will eventually come. I think that was the big learning for me. Yeah.
And in your experience, how much of a role does a good editor play in shaping the manuscript once you think you have done you are done with it?
Oh, actually quite a bit, and you're an editor.
Which is why the question. You
would know, but certainly a lot. I think from the first draft to what comes out finally in print is a whole journey. I think when you write, when an author writes, he or she is writing initially for, you're writing for oneself. Yeah. But after the first draft is when you decide to look at it from the audience's point of view. And that's where an editor's role is very important, because there may be entire blind spots. Characters may be redundant, situations may be verbose or too long, and an editor, I think, can help chisel it into shape. Yeah.
So a book that you took 2-3 years to write, how difficult is it for you to accept the changes that an editor is suggesting? Because you would be very close to the characters, very close to the entire manuscript.
So I think what's helped me is that I try to be objective about it. And if you have that objectivity, you're able to see from a reader's point of view that, oh, actually, for instance, one temptation is that if you've done a lot of research on something, you feel you've got to put it there. Correct. But the reader is going to get bored. So to be able to step out of your shoes and put yourself in the reader's shoe is important. That helped. So I was able to make those changes. So there are entire characters. So I remember the first draft, I had got a lot of Kishore Kumar in there because I like Kishore Kumar. And somebody asked me, why is Kishore Kumar appearing so often? And I realized I had to, so there's no Kishore Kumar in the final manuscript. But, you've got to do that, yeah.
That's a tough call for music lovers as well, right? Yeah. Okay, so congratulations again to you.
Thank you, and thank you.
Yeah. Fact that your book has been, is going to be adapted to screen.
Yeah,
yes?
yeah, hopefully, yes.
Yes, so how did that come about?
So the book has been optioned for screen adaptation, which means that in a couple of years, they'll try and put the project together. So I think what helped was, I think the book itself is, in a way, quite cinematic, because there's a lot of, vivid descriptions of places. Places were a very important part of the inspiration behind the story. I think my publisher, Tree Shade Books, played a big role, because they understand that a story is not, only to be conveyed through a book. It can be conveyed through other mediums as well. And of course, we had a screen agent, the Story Inc., who helped us to get a screen adaptation deal. Yeah.
So how much control will you have over the narrative when that happens?
Oh, well, to be honest with you, when you option the rights for screen adaptation, it's the directors and producers' call. I will be involved as to consult during the process, but it's eventually the call of the director and producer, because how to bring something vividly alive on screen is something that they know best.
So when you chose the title of the book, Kalkut, it's a word that is not easily understood by most people. And do you think it restricts itself to an Indian audience?
Well, to be fair, the bulk of the audience for the book is indeed Indian. So in that sense, it's fine. The other, so, most people actually don't know about the fact that Kalkut is this primordial poison. Yeah. Some people, the word Kal seems to indicate time. Correct. It seems to indicate something terrifying or mysterious around time, ominous. So that has played well. There is a byline as well, the Lost Himalayan Secret. So some people have interpreted that to mean that there is some, there's a sense of mystery and intrigue. So it's been okay. Yeah.
So the cover of your book is quite interesting. It has a symbol at the top.
Yes,
talk about that.
So that symbol is a symbol for a certain type of danger. I won't reveal exactly what it is, but it's a very internationally, it's a symbol that's known among people in the army or the police very clearly. It's a symbol for a certain type of danger. And the truth is, today we live in a world where there are dangers of all sorts. There is not just nuclear weapons, there's biochemical weapons, there's biological weapons. So some of the theme of this book is actually, and I'm going to give away a little bit of the story, is around biological weapons. So, yeah.
And do you have any advice for young writers, other than the fact that they need to be disciplined? How else can they approach this?
So I think, be disciplined, of course. I think the other thing is that during the creative process, you have to give up control. Don't try to use your logical mind too much. Let it flow freely. I think the part that is creative and the part that censors, edits, is different. They're different areas of the brain, I think. So one mistake a lot of people made, as recently as a month ago, somebody contacted me saying that, I write one paragraph and then I feel it's not good enough. I go back and edit it, and somehow it never seems to come out right. My answer to that is, don't bother with editing. Don't bother with how good it is. Just write. Or whatever, sing, play the guitar, whatever you want to do. Just do it. Don't be restricted by whether it's good enough, what will people think. Those are considerations you should bring into the picture after you've done your first draft. So the censoring and editing part, just keep it in check. Don't let that inhibit your creative side of your personality.
I think that's very good advice, especially if I am to have a job. So thank you, Venkatesh. That was really enlightening.
Thank you, Pritsika, and
Would
I valued
anybody-
your suggestions all through my writing and publishing process.
I am so glad. Thank you. Anybody here has any questions for Venkatesh or me? You have a question?
Yeah, I think dilemmas are great from a writer's perspective because that's what keeps the suspense alive in the book. So in Kalkut, for instance, there is a dilemma that the protagonist is faced with. Should he save the life of the one person that he loves deeply, or should he save the life of tens of thousands of people who are going to be obliterated? Actually, what would you do, if I may ask you? Yeah. Of the tens of thousands of people, is it? Okay, fair enough. So, yeah, dilemmas are the essence of a story because the whole essence of a story is in having a question that either the reader or the protagonist wants to answer. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sir, how was your journey from an equity analyst to an author?
Well, it's been a long journey. I still continue to run a management consulting firm, so I still have the corporate part of my, pursuits on. I think the big thing is that it's difficult to find time in the midst of a, demanding job. So for me, I knew I wanted to write, but somehow never found the mind space or the time. I think the simple advice there is to try and restrict certain other things. So if you're just going to be mindlessly checking Facebook, if you have 10 minutes, why don't you use those 10 minutes to just write something? Even 10 minutes a day can go a long way. So for me, I started as an equity analyst with Credit Suisse and then JP Morgan. I moved on to become a private equity investor. It actually fed into my writing because as a private equity investor, you travel to lots of places, you understand companies, they share with you details about how they go about their business, and somewhere that gives you inspiration to write as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more for you, Venkatesh. How do you approach a publisher and get the ball rolling?
Well, that's a tough one, frankly, because most publishers, you must have heard of this thing called the slush pile. They just have a load of manuscripts that they want to read. Frankly, my advice would be try and see if you have a way for publishers to have a higher recall for you than the other manuscripts that they get. So if you have a friend or a journalist or somebody who can refer you, that's ideal. If not, frankly, there are other ways today to get visible, which is use social media. If you've been blogging, you can point publishers to the fact that your blog has X number of followers or your Twitter feed or your Instagram has X number of followers. That helps as well. Yeah, but the rest of it is just a tough grind. Frankly, there are enough other options also available nowadays, self-publishing, etc. It's difficult to get enough visibility through self-publishing, to be honest. But I think what helps is if you have a forum, whether it's your Twitter or Facebook or your blog or whatever, where you're regularly sharing your views with people anyway, and you have a certain number of committed followers, then that helps because that helps you get noticed. Yeah.
That's great. Any parting words for our audience in terms of the writing process?
Well, not just writing, as we said, any creative pursuit or any dream that you want to fulfill, I think make that beginning because as somebody said, right, money will always come to you later in life. Even land will always come to you later, but time doesn't come back. So make that beginning now. Whatever it is, you want to start an NGO, you want to start your own company, you want to write, you want to learn music, you want to travel, whatever it is, the time to do it is now. Yeah.
Super. Thanks, Venkatesh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such an interesting talk. I'm sure we all learned a lot about creativity in all situations. I would request Mrs. Shubhra Nitsure to please come on stage to felicitate our guests.
this is special for me because I actually began my career in the stock market. So this is special. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We now have a short film screening. The film is called Mukti Parva, a Renaissance.